Come make my bed with me as we explore how starting small can actually be protection instead of limitation. Luke 16:10 says, "If you are faithful in the little things, then you will be faithful in the bigger things. But if you are dishonest in the little things, then you will be dishonest with even greater responsibilities." I've always been a proponent for how we start now determines the trajectory for how we will handle bigger things in that same category. So if we are naturally messy people, if we get more house, it's just more home to create a bigger mess in. If we are naturally not that emotionally mature in certain areas, then when we are challenged emotionally, we might not be able to handle that with the best capacity. Starting small can be such a blessing because it gives us the opportunity to not mess up with what we want to have as concrete. For example, I would love to be a public speaker, but if my first endeavor was me speaking in front of 3,000 people instead of starting small and building my voice and understanding who I am, then it probably wouldn't be a good representation of who I truly am, and it probably wouldn't gain the same audience or sustain the same amount of people that I would like it to. When we start small, it allows us such a greater freedom for success, and it allows such a small audience for mistakes. When there's no one really watching and we're allowed to really develop our talent, that is where we can truly thrive if we allow ourselves to. The small moments are how we build the muscle to carry what we've truly been asking for. And when we don't allow ourselves to build that muscle, then our strength can be too weak in the time of challenges and the time of opportunity, and in the time of really presenting ourselves the way that we would like to be in our finished product, but we started prematurely or achieved or attained that thing too soon, so it might not be sustainable. The question can become, what do we postpone while waiting for big opportunities to shine and mismanaging the small opportunities in our life? If we are not good at handling small relationships, small endeavors, small organizational tasks within work, then how are we going to handle big relationships and big endeavors and entrepreneurial tasks with work that we want to do? We have to really ask ourselves and be honest with ourselves that the way that we show up now is indicative of how we will show up in the future, even when given more. And in Luke 16:10, it talks about stewarding what we have well. And in Ecclesiastes, the whole book of Ecclesiastes, it talks about how what we have is not what gives us meaning, but what we have is a gift from the meaningful God. And so when we place our meaning in things that are not actually what define us and what gives us meaning, it can become a slippery slope. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to really tie in that these things that God has given me are gifts, and how I steward them still matters. And Ecclesiastes talks about a great way on how to steward your gifts, to take your time and romanticize those little things, to embrace those small moments, to really take in the day and not to get caught up in the trap of waiting until or postponing your happiness and joy. And the author of Ecclesiastes even said he was able to find joy even in his work. So instead of waiting for retirement, waiting until the kids, waiting until marriage, waiting until, he really spoke about how it's important to really cherish the gifts that God has given, because life is unpredictable, unfair. There are so many things that can happen. And again, how we steward these small moments shows God that we're grateful and that we can handle even more. In Ecclesiastes, the author talks about how uncontrollable and unfair and unpredictable life is, but he still lands on faith, humility, and gratitude. And it just reminds us that regardless of the situation and the circumstance of what is going on, it is still wise to steward what we have well and to thank God for these gifts and not to get confused confused with creating these gifts as our identity. Even in me stewarding my home, before I was here, I would steward my room that I had and show God that I'm grateful for what He's given me in a season, even though I didn't have what I was asking for quite yet. We realize that no matter what path you take, time and chance happen to all those paths, that we can try to put our identity in school, in marriage, in children, in all of these things, but life happens. Kids grow, they move out, people leave, things happen that are unexpected. And when we put our identity in these gifts, it's not sustainable, it's not lasting, and it doesn't create the meaning that God intended us to create in this life. God gives us meaning, and these things that He's given us are gifts. So as we steward them well and we give gratitude to God and land again on that faith and humility in understanding what He's given us, we then continue to remove our identity from those things and to not place our hope and our meaning in things that are fleeting and not lasting. This is where in Ecclesiastes he keeps saying, eat, drink, be merry. And he's saying, enjoy those gifts, enjoy those things as gifts while God has given them to you. Don't rush and wait and try to build all of these things that pretend to give us meaning for a short period of time, but it's all vapor, it's all vanity. It all eventually comes back down and goes back up. And in psychology, we call this hedonic adaptation, where you really want something and then you get it and it just doesn't feel as good once you get it, or it just, that good feeling doesn't last quite long or forever. But something that does last is the meaning that God gives us, and understanding that when we take care of these things that He's given us, we're able to enjoy them in the capacity that it's meant to be enjoyed. So starting small can actually be a beautiful thing of protection to really test us to see if it's what we really want, and to really test our hearts to see where it's really at. Even with me in this YouTube and starting small, God, help me to not become so self-righteous in trying to teach others, and help me to not put all of my meaning and my hope in trying to come on here and look a particular way. It's such a great thing when you can realize that starting small can be a protection from pride, becoming too full of ourselves because of our gifts. Imagine if I just posted one video and got 1 million subscribers, then I probably wouldn't attribute that too much to consistency and stewardship and trusting God. I would probably think that has a lot to do with myself. And to not mismanage the moments that we are given. So Ecclesiastes and Luke goes side by side saying, steward what you have well. And Ecclesiastes says, remember that what you have is a gift. And regardless of where you are, whether you start with just a room or you start with a beautiful home, remember to pour into that and to steward that the same way you would with either one of those things. And it's kind of like that verse 2, that I know how to live with a little and I know how to live with a lot. God, help me to take care of what I have in the smaller seasons and the bigger seasons, and to really trust you and appreciate these things as a gift and not to confuse them with my identity. It's okay to want more, and it's okay to be vigilant and decide for your life that, hey, an education may be good for me. Hey, this entrepreneurial endeavor may be good for me, or whatever it may be, and to make choices and to be diligent. It's not just saying live your life carelessly because nothing matters. It's saying to live your life even more particularly and even more mindfully and even more in the moment, because it's all vapor. It all goes away. And these moments that we try to rush through are such a gift for the present. And they're such a special thing because they're not going to last forever. Motherhood, this stage is not going to last forever. This place of my marriage is not going to last forever. We're going to grow and we're going to mature, and God willing, develop into different versions of ourselves than when we started. And so it's important to cherish each season, the small, the boyfriend, the fiance, the husband, in each stage of progression, to cherish each season of starting small with your YouTube and then hopefully gaining more followers, and and to be able to fail in silence and to start small with reading a few books and educating yourselves into attaining the degree. It's okay to start wherever you are and to remember that each moment, even when I'm starting, is a gift. It is special, and that how I steward this is determines how I'm going to steward even more. So thank God for the small things, right? Because if we're struggling handling the small things, then it might be an indicator that we might not want the larger things after all, right? You might get a home and say, this is too much to clean, or a relationship and say, this is too much to juggle in this season. But thank God for those small moments, and that we don't just want something and it's given to us at full capacity. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope that this was a good balance between the gifts that we steward in Luke 16:10 and the entirety of Ecclesiastes of these things are gifts and not my identity. And when I place my identity in God, I'm able to steward things well without clinging to false identities, and I'm able to cherish and really sit in contentment. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.